Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday, it is 4 p.m. ET, and we are so thrilled that you have found us here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. I'm your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 16 going on 17 novels of suspense. I know, suspense, that's the suspenseful part. Suspense. My current book is One Wrong Word, which is displayed cleverly on the door behind me, and my brand new book coming out in September, Here's the Precious. It is All This Could Be Yours, about a debut author on the book tour from hell, and I cannot wait for you to read it. It comes out September the 9th, and as you know, you can remember that because it comes out on the same day as Dan Brown's sequel to The Da Vinci Code. So that is going to be a lot of fun. So when you hear about Dan Brown's book, and you will, you just say to yourself, oh, my friend Hank Phillippi Ryan has a book coming out the same day called All This Could Be Yours. But we are not here to talk about my book today. We are here to welcome back the fabulous Brendan Slocumb. I am smiling ear to ear to welcome back Brendan Slocumb, whose third book, Dark Maestro, is out right now. You all, it is unique. It is fabulous. It is touching. It is poignant. It is hilarious. It's clever, clever, clever. I don't know how he did it. And you know that no one writes about music like Brendan Slocumb. And this is not to be missed. We are giving away, well, we're not. Brendan is giving away. I'm keeping this. Brendan is giving away a copy of this book today. And Brendan, we are so thrilled that you are bringing Dark Maestro to us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's always great to be here and with the phenomenal Hank. It's just, I love you so much and thank you.
Thank you. I feel the same way. Absolutely. So it feels like, I remember when your first book came out, and we were one of the first interviews, I think, that you did. And I just remember thinking, this is the guy, he totally has it. I've never read a book like that. And you continue to be absolutely brilliant. It's marvelous. Your book, this book just came out, Dark Maestro, we are talking about, if you just joined us. And so many people have. Here's Renee and Melanie and Deborah and Sue Street and Tori T. And Emily is here and Robin Stull and Susie Myers Tiernan is here. Barbara is here from North Carolina. Barbara Wojcik. You've been on tour for this book. And I am seeing your Instagram, which is just blown up with thousands of people at every event. Can you talk about what that's been like to be on tour for this?
It has been actually great. It's very, very tiring, but it's great. If I were 25 years younger doing this, man, I would be having the time of my life. I'm just having a good time now, but that would be the time of my life. No, it's wonderful. The people coming out and supporting this book and supporting me, and I'm seeing people that I've seen, years ago from the Violin Conspiracy, and it's the greatest feeling. It's great.
It's interesting when you were talking about if you were younger. I think about this every day when I'm on book tour. I think I'm too old for this, but there's a fuel that you get, and I know it's the same as, I can imagine it's the same as playing a musical instrument in public. There's a fuel that you get from the response of the audience. Do you feel that the same way?
Absolutely. When you go out and you can just feel the energy. It's like there's no one there who wants to bash you or bash your book. Everybody's there out of love and they want to see you do well. And it's the greatest feeling and it's palpable. You can feel it and, just keep it coming. It's great.
I mean, that's what keeps our engines going, doesn't it? When you have the 4 a.m. planes and you think, there's not enough coffee in the world to get me through this. And then you think of what's waiting for you and how everybody who is in that audience has read your books or wants to read your books. And that kind of pulls you along. How is it different to be on tour, if it is, to be on tour with a book than it is to be on tour playing your instrument?
Well, with the musical aspect, you know exactly what to expect. You know exactly what's going to happen. You are on stage, you've worked, you've played, you've practiced, and boom, there you go. You do a performance and people clap and they love it and great. With the book thing, you never know. I never want to assume that everyone in the audience loves a book. I also don't want to assume, I made the mistake a long time ago, I won't do this again, of assuming that everyone has read the book, and that it kind of changes up the feel of the room a little bit, not in a bad way, just changes it a bit. So you know that you're going to have either new readers or you'll never add them to your list of people who want to read anything that you've written. So it's very cool. It's fun. I look at it as a welcome challenge. If they haven't read that book, I want to make sure that everything that comes out of my mouth wants to draw them into reading this book. So it's fun that way.
The other thing that's just as you're talking about it, I'm sort of imagining it. The other thing is when you go in and play a piece of music, you've practiced and practiced and practiced that music, and it's not going to vary except for how well you play the same notes. But every single book event is completely different.
Yes. Very, very, very different. I mean, you know this, it's super different. And I really can't, I'm not saying that don't get excited for these events. I really do love meeting people and, talking about the books and going to these different places. Side note, one of my favorite things to do when I get to a city that I've never been to before is just to walk around. I just want to take in the atmosphere of where it is that I am. But when you've practiced and you've practiced and you've practiced, like you mentioned, exactly what's going to happen. And that's totally fine. But the aspect of the books, it goes back to those people I like to refer to who have not read the book at all. At first I was like, oh, everyone in here has read this book, so I can talk about everything and the spoilers, blah, blah, no spoilers. But the people that haven't read it, I really look at it as a challenge to convince them that this is going to be worth your while. This is going to be worth your time. And even if I don't convince them, I'm still grateful that they showed up, and it's a wonderful feeling.
I cannot believe that there is someone who would not be so eager to read Dark Maestro. All you have to do is hear a tiny bit about it, and it is absolutely irresistible. You're getting so much love in the chat. Shannon Hansen said, excited to add the book to my collection. So good, says Robin. Me too, says Sue Street. Tanya Jackson says hi. And we will talk about that, Deborah Press, how you got the idea to write that in about 1 minute. But let me welcome you again to Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. If you are new to A Mighty Blaze, you have picked the best day to have your premiere performance on Crime Time, because we are hosting Brendan Slocumb and his wonderful Dark Maestro. Crime Time and A Mighty Blaze was started 5 years or so ago at the beginning of the pandemic by the wonderful powerhouse duo of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt, who we adore, to keep us together, to keep us talking about books, to keep us discovering new books. And as I said, after 5 years, we are still going strong, and we are so thrilled and honored that you are joining us today. Speaking of thrilled and honored, we are delighted to have Brendan Slocumb, and I know you know him, but if you don't know him, let me just tell you briefly. He was born in Yuba City, California, and raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Barbara is with us today from North Carolina. He is a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Greensboro with a degree in music education with concentrations on violin and viola. For more than 20 years, he has been a public and private school music educator and has performed with orchestras throughout Northern Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and North Carolina. He lives in Washington, D.C., and The Dark Maestro is his third novel, which we will hear about in about 10 seconds. But leave a question or a comment or just general applause or standing ovations for Brendan Slocumb in the chat, and you will be entered to win on the Wheel of Fun at the end of the show. If you do not win, I am so sad, but you better run, and click, and get your copy of this book. You do not need to have read his first two books to read this one. It is completely a standalone, but you ought to go get the other ones as well. When you're clicking and running to your bookstore, you might as well check it out. Anyway, Brendan, I cannot wait to hear from you how you'll describe this book. Tell us about it.
All right. Now, I have not gotten the elevator pitch down on this thing yet, so I'm going to be all over the place. I apologize in advance. Okay, so The Dark Maestro is a story of a young man named Curtis. It's actually a kid who decides that he wants to play the cello. Turns out that he loves it so much. He's basically a prodigy. He works extremely hard. His home life is not the greatest because his dad is a low-level drug dealer, and his mother figure used to be a low-level drug dealer, and she's into some sketchy stuff too, but they love him. So Curtis ends up going to school to play cello. He is magnificent. He gets scholarship after scholarship, but his dad's business dealings may derail all of that. Oop, I didn't give anything away. May derail all of that because he's a little bit sketchy and he gets involved in some bad stuff. And right when Curtis is at the peak of his career trajectory, he has made it to the top. He's performing with the New York Philharmonic. FBI agents come in and say, you come with us because you're now in the witness protection program. And his life just ended. Everything that he's worked for has completely gone off the bridge. It's done. And, he's got to come up with some idea, some way. The FBI is not really doing enough to capture this head boss. So they've got to concoct a way to get their lives back. And the comic book persona of the Dark Maestro that Curtis develops as a result of not being able to play cello anymore is the way to do it. And the stuff that they do is pretty risky, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You got to read it to find out.
I love that. That's a perfect elevator pitch. And it's so interesting because you have a child who turns out to be a cello prodigy, and he grows up and becomes absolutely a brilliant musician, a lauded musician with massive crowds. And suddenly his whole life is whisked out from under him because of a series of events that are in the book. The prologue of this novel, where, and I'm telling you all, there are no spoilers on that. Everything Brendan said is on the back. So the book is way more than that. The prologue is the moment when he is taken into witness protection. And that prologue is a virtuoso performance in itself. It introduces Curtis as a musician, as a successful musician on the peak of wild success and stardom. It introduces us to a piece of music. It brings us into the piece of music. It takes us out of the piece of music and back into real life. No one writes about music the way you do, Brendan. Can you talk a little bit about, before we get into more of the plot of the book, can you talk a little bit about how you possibly can bring a piece of music that we've never heard into life in our minds on the page? That it seems impossible, but you do it spectacularly.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. You can't tell, but I really am blushing. Wow. Okay. So it's one of those things where as a musician, I have to kind of disassociate myself, because everything that I want to get across, I already know, I already feel. So I really take it down to a basic level. What is it that I feel when I play this piece? What is it that I'm hearing when I play this piece? It's not just notes. I know what the composer's intent was. In this case, the first piece is the Kabalevsky Cello Concerto No. 2, which is one of my absolute favorite pieces in the world that not many people know about. And it was knowing a lot about his background. He was a Russian composer who just, he was all about Russia. He was, if it didn't have Russia in it, it wasn't good enough for him. So knowing this, I want to take people on a journey. You've never been here before. Let me guide you along. This is what I see when I hear this going on. And, this is what it's building up to. I feel it. And I want you to, I try to use language that brings people along. You don't have to be a musician at all, but you will totally understand this concerto and what the performer is feeling by the time you finish reading the description. It's all about feelings. As a musician, we feel this stuff all the time. I was listening to the Kabalevsky yesterday, and I'm just it was like I heard it for the first time. And first time I heard it was like 45 years ago, but I just, every time I hear it, it's like hearing it for the first time. And I want to bring the audience along to experience that, because it's a great feeling. And, people can apply people kind of can apply that to anything, whatever it is that you do that you love. If it's being a dentist and you love teeth, you could probably do a description where everyone understands your love for teeth and they get it. And they're like, wow, okay, all right. So it's all in the description, all in where you want to go.
That's so funny. I had a boyfriend once who was a dentist. This is more than you ever wanted to know. And I did ask him once, why do you love this? Why? I mean, dentistry seems so unfun. And He said, no, it's art.
Hmm.
I'm creating beauty on people's faces. I make them happy. I keep them from feeling pain. It's something that I studied very hard to do. Every single person is different. He was really eloquent
Mhm.
about it. So it's so funny that you picked dentistry, which seems, so difficult to make lovely. And he did it too. But again, I will never listen to the pieces of music that you refer to in this book the same way again, because I've now heard them through Curtis's mind and through Curtis's soul. I know you teach, do you talk to your students about that, meeting the music that way?
Yes, I do. I think that's very important. I think that's a component that is sorely lacking in today's environment. It's just, I would always tell my students, and I always did this, especially, you and I were talking about team efforts and group efforts earlier. That's a conversation we're not going to, but when I introduce a new piece to my students, we play through it first. And then I explain to them what it's about, what it's supposed to represent, what the composer was thinking, what he was doing at the time the piece was written. And it is like a brand new piece whenever they play it that way. I truly feel you have to understand it's not notes. You got to understand it's got to mean something to you. And I guide them along the way to give them something. This is what it means to me. And every student sees and hears it differently, which is fantastic. But they all see, feel, hear something. They do get something instead of just notes. And I think that's very, very, very important. That's the difference between playing notes and playing music.
Don't you all learn so much by coming here to On Crime Time? Sherry says, I wish my band teacher had done that. Absolutely, because it's connecting your musical mind with the mind that you already have and painting a picture for you of of connecting with the composer and feeling what they meant to convey. I know I told you my dad was a musician and a composer, so I used to hear him talk about things like this, and what each piece of music meant. The thing that you also bring to Dark Maestro is, though, Curtis's passion for music. And when we talk about what makes a good suspenseful novel, we say, what could be the worst thing that could possibly happen to your character? And the worst thing that possibly could happen to Curtis does, which is that the music is taken away, or they try to take the music away. Where did you come up with the idea that he would have to be in witness protection with some people in his family? How did you come up with that loss?
It just kind of popped into my head. I thought it would be interesting. I really thought it would be interesting. I have a friend who literally just retired when I was starting to write this book. He just retired from the U.S. Marshal Service, and he could give me a lot of information that he could not give me when he was working. So that was a very interesting conversation, and I learned so much about the witness protection program. It's more than just, okay, pack up. Now we're going to move to a state, 3 states over, and then we're going to start a new life. And everything is great and honky dory and everybody loves it. It is so far removed from that. It is nothing like that. And it was surprising to me. It was pleasantly surprising. And, what makes for a good story than something unexpected like this to happen? And yeah, I just found it fascinating. So I really wanted to incorporate it into this book.
I mean, it's meant to protect people from something, and they do need protection. But in this case, the protection has a heavy cost,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is taking away everything that Curtis lives for, actually. I wondered how you knew so much about witness protection, because it's just so authentically written. Are the things that you talk about the elements of witness protection, are those things pretty true?
100%. I strive for accuracy. Being a musician, I have to do that. When I write anything music related, my friends would just crucify me if one thing is wrong. They're like, "Dude, what were you thinking when you did?" I'm not. So everything has got to be accurate. Not to mention, I've also gotten emails from people when I have not been so accurate. I had written something in the Violent Conspiracy about the LED lights in Carnegie Hall. I got an email from someone who works in Carnegie Hall who informed me that they do not use LED lights. So I was like, wow. I got to be better. I have to do my due diligence, and so that's really important to me. You want to be accurate. You owe it to your fans to be accurate 100%. That what they're reading is as close to, they can make it as real as they want, but you got to be accurate.
I hear you, even though it's fiction.
Yeah.
It's fictional Carnegie Hall. But when it's something like that, I got an email once from someone who was angry because I had referred to someone being afraid of eating a turkey sandwich with mayonnaise that had been left out on the counter for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And my character says she's worried about the mayonnaise going bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the person wrote to me and said, it isn't the mayonnaise that would go bad. It's the turkey that would go bad. And I'm like, it's fiction. It's what the character thinks would go bad. But speaking of being authentic and realistic in your books, there's another reason that's very poignant and angering about why, when someone says to Curtis, you can just play your cello under another name, why he can't do that. Can you talk about that element of the story and why that was important?
Well, it's because whatever name that Curtis would have chosen, that's someone else. That's someone else who didn't do any work. That's someone else who didn't sacrifice. That's someone else who will be gaining credit and credibility from the work that Curtis put in. I am a huge proponent of, getting credit for what it is that you do. And like in my second book, Symphony of Secrets, Josephine was not receiving credit for her work. And it's so important, you do the work, and it is work. It's hard. It's work. It's sacrifice. And that just would not do. And he wouldn't be able to perform like he wanted to perform. He could play as someone else, but he could not perform. He has a very specific style of playing. His vibrato is very, very unique. And that's a dead giveaway right there. He would have to change everything about who he is and the way that he plays. And I just don't think that would be worth it to Curtis.
And that's really powerful to hear, because it's everything that he's worked for and everything he's created that's unique about himself. And the other thing that's unique, sadly, is that I think he says something like, people would think, where did he come from? There aren't that many Black cellists in the world, and there aren't that many Black cellists at this level of proficiency. And that's been something that you've talked about for years now, is Black musicians who play professionally, or people of color who play professionally, and the lack of that. Talk a little bit about why that's important to you to make us know as well.
Well, I think one reason I think it's very, very important as an educator is because you think about it, 10, 20 years from now, a lot of those people playing in those orchestras are going to be done. They will retire. They can't play anymore, just of age or whatever. And it's important to start the next generation of musicians right now. And especially, it's not relegated to one type of person. And unless there is exposure, unless there is, you get to see someone who looks just like you doing it, you never know what will spark that creativity. And it might be someone watching me play the violin, or watching someone play Curtis being watched playing the cello, that would inspire the next generation of musicians. So exposure is so incredibly important. The first time I saw a Black violinist, he was a teacher when I was in elementary school. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I did not think that they existed. And I called him a couple of months ago just to, say hello and all that good stuff. And he just, he was happy for the success and everything, but it's so important that we are seen, that everyone is seen as a person of color, or as anyone. It should not be limited. And right now, for so many years, it has been limited for, various reasons. And I just want people to read books like this to know that when you see someone like Curtis, don't be surprised. Don't, assume that he's in the group because of a, diversity hire or anything. They're just as talented. We were just as talented as everyone else. It's just one big happy family of music, and it's not limited to anyone.
One of the reasons that this book is so fantastic, and if you just joined us, hey, Sue Street, hey, Tanya Jackson, hey, Julie Brinkley, and Christoph Hinterberger is here, and Christy H says, new author to me, so excited to read Brendan's new book. That's fantastic. they say that the only way to write a fabulous book, which you have done with this one, is to be the only person in the world who could have written this particular book. And it just strikes me that personally, professionally, medically, musically, you're comic bookly, if that's a word, you're the only person in the world who could have written this book. Can we just take those things kind of one by one? You were talking about young musicians, and in this book, Curtis gets his first instrument. It's lovely and it's touching. And doesn't it kind of mirror your own experience?
100%. Curtis is on a different level. Curtis is every beginning student that I've ever taught. They're just wide-eyed and excited, and they love it. They don't know what they're doing, but they absolutely love that they get an opportunity to do it. And they love you because you're showing them this, and it's the best feeling. And I love seeing beginners be successful early on. I love it because they love it, and they're not quite sure why they love it, but they know that they do. And then you can see that love develop as they go along, and it's a great feeling. And
you remember your choice of your first instrument, that moment?
I do. I don't even think I chose the violin. Violin chose me. There was nothing else. I wouldn't even consider anything else. I'm going to do violin.
And we've talked about your passion for music and how you give that to Curtis throughout, and how he wants to sleep with his cello because he feels so connected with that. You also mentioned in your author's notes the medical situation that connected you with parts of this book. Can you talk a little bit about that? It's in your author's note, and I hope it's not too personal to ask you to talk to us about.
Oh, Hank, for you, anything? Of course not. No. I will say to readers, if you haven't read this yet, please don't read the author's notes first. Don't do that. Don't read them first. I was afflicted with a very acute case of kidney failure. And as I was writing this book, I was getting worse and worse and worse. And it was getting to the point where all I could do was just kind of drag myself to the couch and just lay there because I was so sick. And by the time it came around for me to get a transplant, my best friend actually volunteered. And turns out, we've been best friends since we were 19 years old. We've known each other forever. We've grown up together. And turns out that he was a 98% match for my kidney transplant. And that was a blessing. And, we went through it, and it was touch and go for a little while, but everything is great now. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm getting my energy back. I've gained weight. I'm not like an ectomorphic 140 pounds anymore. I might be eating too much, but it's okay. I can do that. I can always lose it. But I'm here, and I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very grateful to everyone who has helped me to be here, from my surgeon to my nephrologist to my best friend to my family, everyone who has supported me and basically nursed me back to health. I am super grateful, and that aspect played a huge role in certain parts of this book. So it'll make perfect sense now that you guys have heard that, and I hope you. I'm actually going to do more with the kidney foundations for people to become live donors, because it's not hard, and you are literally saving someone's life. Like, my best friend saved my life. I would not be here. I would be 6 feet under right now, and I'm just very, very grateful. So this book is a way for me to express that gratitude and to bring awareness to what's going on, and to actually there are people out there who need transplants, and there are tons of people. We only need one kidney. We only need one. So might be something to consider, being a live donor.
The adulation and accolades in the chat, I hope you'll come back afterward and look at those. And we are so pleased that you are well now. The other passion in your life besides music and other things is comic books. And this is just a tour de force of love for comic books in absolutely every way. Tell us a little bit about how you used your love and not only your love, but your knowledge, because this book has, and I say this in the most affectionate and the most complimentary of ways, has just the essence of what a good comic book is, in structure, in characters. We'll talk about characters in a minute, and all kinds of things. Talk a little bit about how you dared to do that.
Well, referring back to the medical thing, you never know. I didn't know if I was going to, make it or not. So I'd gotten some fantastic advice to write what you know.
Mhm.
And I am a huge proponent of doing what you love. And I have loved comic books since I was 15 years old. So having read comics and, collected them for years and years and years, I don't want to call myself an expert because there's certainly people that know a lot more than I do, but I've always loved them and I've always had access to them. And it's one of those things I really wanted to incorporate because you never know. It might be the last book I write. So I really wanted to do something in that vein. And I was so happy that my agent and my editor were yes, okay, you can do this. It's going to be a little touchy, but you can do it. And just knowing everything that I know about comic books, I didn't have to do any research. It was great. I was like, okay, yeah, just throw this in there, throw that in there. And it was wonderful. And I will confess, I don't care who knows it. Yeah, everybody knows it. I'm the biggest comic book nerd you've ever seen in your life. But I make it look cool because I go in, tattoos and muscles, and I go to the comic book store, and I dare anyone to say anything to me while I'm there.
Well, they don't know your secret identity. That's the thing. They're not going to mess with you in any way. I want to know how many of you in the audience read comics, do now, did when you were a kid. How many of us still love them? It's supremely cool, the comic book element of this book, because not only does every child, this is a generalization, but every child dreams of having some superpower that leads to justice in some way. And that's what the essence of this book is too, that Curtis and two other main characters who we'll talk about briefly in a minute there is a change in their lives. There's something that seems to be horrible, and they use that to search for justice and prevail, as you're supposed to do in comic books. When you realized that was going to work in your book, what did you think about that?
Yes. Oh, finally. Yes. I was thrilled. I was excited. It's always something that I wanted to do. And when you're immersed in this world, sometimes you feel like you're alone. Sometimes, and like none of my younger brother, before he passed away, he was into comic books as well. I kind of got him into comics, and whenever I would see him, we would always ask, what's going on in this, what's going on in that. And it's just nice to feel connected with. I know that there is a niche for people who enjoy comic books. I know they're out there. And I think there's just enough in this book if you are curious, if you just, I wonder what is the big deal about this, you might check it out. And comic books are more than just entertainment. I've learned so much vocabulary from comics as a kid growing up. I would look up some of the words that were used, some of the scientific terms and just vocabulary in general. Oh, that's a real word. Oh, okay, I'm going to start using that in my daily speech. But it's just one of those things. It's a club. It really is a club, and anyone is welcome. You will see that anyone is definitely welcome to join the Comic Book Geek Society of America, which I might actually start. It's great.
The Comic Book Geek Society of America. You have your first members right here. I'm telling you, the Crime Time people are saying, love it. I read Richie Rich, Archie, Veronica growing up, says Tanya. So everybody is a comic book lover in this book. And I do want to make clear that we are in talking about Dark Maestro. This is a wonderful thriller. It's a fast-paced, page-turning thriller. It's also a poignant coming of age book, and it will leave you at the end feeling empowered, just like Brendan said, this is exactly what should have happened. But it's also very touching and tender and revealing and heartbreaking. It's about loyalty and family and persistence and determination and love. All of that is in this novel. Can you talk a little bit? It's about sacrifice too, for better or for worse, about sacrifice. Can you talk a little bit about how there are three main characters. Talk a little bit about their relationship and how those emotions build so gorgeously in this book.
Well, thank you for asking that. That was one of my favorite things to write. I love the character development of all three of these characters was really fun for me to do. Zippy, who is Curtis's dad, he actually goes through a huge transformation because of certain events that take place in the book. And when you mentioned loyalty, Zippy is very loyal to his son. To his son Curtis. I don't think he realizes the extent of his loyalty or what that means to Curtis until maybe halfway through the story. And then you can really see that he is 100% dedicated to his son. Larissa, who is Zippy's girlfriend and Curtis's mother figure, I think right from the start, you can tell that she is a very caring and thoughtful and loyal person. The things that she does with the interactions she has with people in the story definitely show that. But loyalty is one of those things. I would always teach my students this. I would always teach them loyalty is everything. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it, for starters. And always know that everyone in this room, in this orchestra, in this family will always have your back, always. And that was a lesson that I drilled into my kids all the time. I was like, you don't have to worry about anything. You can leave your purse here because we are all family. We're loyal to each other. No one's going to steal from you. So you can just leave it sitting out and it's fine. And they did. And even to this day, I have former students, who are in their 30s, 40s, and they tell me, it's extremely important. And I'm so glad I got that lesson from you. And now I'm teaching that to my kids. I push it at work. This is important. This is why this is important. And, it's everything that I learned in high school from your class. Well, all right, that's great. But in life in general, for me personally, loyalty is everything. If I say I'm going to do something, I've always got that person's back, always. And I always want them to know it.
And sometimes, though, as happens in life, loyalty can be for better or for worse. Ambition can be for better or for worse. And you really handle that, and sacrifice for better or for worse. You handle that so beautifully in this book, all in the service of telling a really fast-paced, absolutely irresistible story. There was a bit that struck me a little bit. I'm just going to read one line, just one little line. And I wonder how much you have thought about this and why you decided to put this in the book. It says, everything was luck, the chance collision of atoms zooming around and bouncing randomly off each other, zipping off in another direction. Sometimes they hit one way and the board lit up. Happy family, here we are. Other times they spun off in different directions and the family was on the run, was broken, damaged beyond hope. And that little crucible of moment of the tipping point is sort of happens throughout this book. Mm-hmm. Why did you put that in the book, and how do you feel about that?
I put that in because it is 100% accuracy. It's accurate and it's honest, because it doesn't take much of a shift in anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Anything could happen at any time. And all you have are the people that you have. And if you can rely on those people, you have nothing to worry about. But even when things get really, 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 really tough, you want to feel like you can rely on those people. But all it would take is one little thing to change that, just one little thing. And I know we always say, oh, I would do X, Y, and Z. If it was my child, I would do this. If it was my husband, I would do this. But once you're in that situation, it's hard to say what you would do unless you're actually in the situation. And a lot of people, I ask a lot of people, what would you do in this case? What would you do? Do you think this person did the right thing? Well, if it was me, I would have done this. I'm like, well, how do you know that? How do you know? You never know what could change in a moment, in a glance. Anything could change, and your loyalty and your love and everything is tested. Everything is tested, and I think the family in this story is constantly being tested. And I like to say that I think they did what any rational family would do if they were in the same situation. I like to think that.
And it makes you realize how you find yourself incrementally in a different situation, little by little by little by little. And the decisions that you make at the moment of necessity reveals who you really are. And you just portray that so gorgeously in The Dark Maestro. It's really amazing. I'm just going back to the comic book element of it for a minute, because the structure of the book is even like a comic book. Something bad happens to someone. They have to regain their power or realize that they have a superpower that they didn't know, and then go after the bad guys in the end and get justice. I mean, it'll bring tears to your eyes. And I'm not even telling you a fraction of the comic bookness of it. But how much did you know about the end? How much did you know about how the end was going to work? On the back of the book, no spoiler again, on the back of the book, it says that Curtis uses music to bring justice. Did you have a last frame of video in your head as you were writing the book, or how much did you know about that?
I actually knew how it was going to end up. It was just, how do I make this play out? And I wanted to stick with the whole comic book element. If you're in the zone, if you're in that whole mindset as you're reading the story, it's great. I think it's great because it plays out exactly the way a comic book would. So that's really what I wanted from the start. But I also wanted to make it as realistic as I could within that realm. So I like to think that it paid off, but that was an important element to me because, again, I didn't want to shortchange comic book lovers, and I didn't want to shortchange non-comic book lovers, and just avid readers. I didn't want to shortchange anybody, but I wanted to represent everyone and make sure that everyone got a little something. Everyone was satisfied. I really wanted to make sure of that. And if I could just mention really quickly, there's a lot of rap lyrics that Curtis uses over his classical music. And someone asked me, "Did you write those lyrics? Those are great." And no, absolutely not. I can rap if I know the song already, but no, I can't come up with this stuff. A really good friend of mine, Jordan Rodriguez, who is going to be a star. He is going to be a star. Believe me on that. He wrote all. I asked him if he would write lyrics for me, and he wrote them all. And I think they turned out fantastic.
Well, I want you all to read them because it is not foreshadowed that this rap is coming. And you heard Brendan just say the combination of classical music and rap lyrics. When was the last time you heard that? Crime timers, you don't. And that's the thing that had me cheering this at the end of the book, because that combination and that evolution of Curtis, of his weaving together of his and your weaving together of classical music and the love for music and the comic book structure is a high wire act. And that could have gotten really wrong and it really different. It was just a virtuoso performance walking that line and incredibly revealing. How do you want readers to feel at the end of the book? And how did you feel at the end of the book?
Wow, that's a great question. At the end of the book, I actually felt, well, a sense of relief just because I got it done, for starters. But I thought I really enjoyed the ending because it gave me the resolution that I wanted as a comic book reader, and also the resolution I wanted as, just a literature reader. I thought it was a good blend, and I was happy with that. I was really happy. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I could totally see this. So I was very happy with it. But I just hope that the readers, find what they're looking for in this story. I wanted the story to be entertaining. I wanted it to be, just unexpected. I wanted things to happen that, wow, can you really? Yeah, I wanted all of that. I wanted all of those elements, and I think it paid off. I'm very happy with this book.
And that is the best thing you could possibly have ever said. The Dark Maestro by Brendan Slocumb. And look at that cool cover, you all. It's a cello and it's a mask. You can't do better than that. It's absolutely what the book is. Let's take some of your questions. We've run over. Oh my goodness. Thank you for being so wonderful, Brendan. Has anyone asked what the next stringed instrument will be taken up on the page? What's next, says the fabulous Andrew Wall.
Andrew, the next stringed instrument will be viola.
Oh, this is what it's interesting when, again, one more thing about Hank. When I was really young and going for my first musical instrument, my mother said, you can play anything you want except the violin. I'm not, because she knew I was terrible at music, and nothing is worse than bad violin.
That's
So,
true.
so she was going to stop me from that. So I came home with a viola because I was just that kind of a kid. She really got mad. I could never play it anyway, but I loved it. Who has the next question? Barbara. Hey, Barbara. So with your love of comics, have you ever thought about writing a graphic novel?
I've heard that since I've been on this book tour, I've heard that at least 2 dozen times, not literally 2 dozen times. When is it going to be a graphic novel? I'm really looking into that aspect. Just to be honest, I know nothing about graphic novels, except that I like to read them sometimes. But I'm working on the best way to get started. I have to talk to people who know all about these things, the production element of a graphic novel. If I have to change the story any, and I'm working on it. I promise you, I'm working on it.
Alex Segura knows all about that. Do you know him?
He is amazing. Yes. Yeah. I love his work. Oh, okay. Don't even get me started, please.
Okay. And I do want to recommend in this book the story about the development of a comic book like thing, but I really don't want to give that away. But again, it's another element. Are there really such things though?
No.
I thought I am missing out on a whole realm of entertainment, and maybe you have actually invented something. So I won't say any more, you all. You just read this. You read this. Who else has a question? Do you have a say in the audio narrator, says Robin Stahl? And somebody else was asking if you were going to read your own.
I did have a say so. I got to choose the reader, and I had the choice of 4 readers, and I forget what his name is. Ronald Pete, I think. I forget. Ugh, I'm sorry. But I love the way he, articulated what it was that he read. So I went with him, and I'm actually planning on reading, maybe not the next book, or maybe I will, I don't know, but I do want to do that. I've been told that I have a good voice, so I'm really looking forward to, maybe getting into voiceovers or reading, being one of those people that read books.
In your spare time.
In my spare time, of course. Yeah.
Exactly. I read the acknowledgments in my audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really fun way to start. Just read your own acknowledgments. And it really brings tears to my eyes to do it. So I highly recommend it. One more question. 2 more questions. Who else has a question? What was your favorite place? Hey, Renee, where was your favorite place to play your music? Where would you like to perform that you haven't? Great question.
Ooh, great question. When I practiced, I love to play in the bathroom because the acoustics are phenomenal and you sound good. So that was fun. I bet you hog the bathroom. I would love to perform at the Opera Hall in Australia. I would love to perform there just because I hear that it's not the greatest acoustically, but it just looks so cool. That's where I want to play.
Looks so cool. Well, maybe someone from there is listening on Crime Time right now, and your phone is going to ring, and it's because of us. And then you have to invite us all, and we're all. I'm listening for it. We will all come with you. One last question, if you will, Margaret. And it is right here. Okay. The cover is a little different, says Sherry. Hey, Sherry, than your other ones. Is there a reason for this?
I think, well, you'll notice that the color scheme is kind of this. It's very similar to Symphony of Secrets and maybe the paperback to Violin Conspiracy. But I think once you read the story, it will make perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, these bright colors and this sort of graphic Matisse design is throughout your novels, and there is no other cover than this could be. It really works out perfectly. Sherry, that is a great question. I love the nod to the comic word bubble in this. Yes, look at that in the cover right here is completely great. Good eye, Julie Brinkley. Love that. Love that. We have gone on way too long, you all, because Brendan is just way too fabulous. But let's spin the wheel of fun and see who is going to, good job, Andrew, and see who is going to win a copy of Dark Maestro. Everybody knows Alex Segura does books that are combinations of graphic novels and regular text, and also does graphic novels. And the winner is Shannon Hansen. Yay, Shansen. I call her Shansen because in my very first show, I was so nervous, and I was talking even faster than I am in now, which is too fast, or way fast. And I said, oh, Shanson, like Shannon Hansen. So I just conflated the name, and that's who she's been ever since. So Shanson, you win the Dark Maestro by Brendan Slocumb. Everybody else, you know what to do. Run, 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 click, click, click. Do not miss this hilariously, cleverly, wonderful, passionate novel. It's fast-paced. It's incredibly entertaining, supremely successful, and that was a combination of successful and suspenseful, and actually heartbreaking. So you will absolutely love it. Let me keep you here for 32 more seconds. One, to tell you that next week, Julie Clark will be here with The Ghost Writer. You know what the price, you know what the temperature is for a book to burst into flames. We all know that. What, Fahrenheit 451, The Ghost Writer, a book going up in flames. And you know Julie Clark, she is absolutely brilliant. So cannot wait to talk with her next week. Today, we have been talking about The Dark Maestro by the fabulous Brendan Slocumb. Brendan, safe travels tomorrow. You're going to Dallas.
Yes, I will be I'm in conversation. I'm actually performing at the Dallas Museum of Art on Thursday. So it should be fun.
Are you playing the Kovalevsky?
Oh, definitely not. No. But I'm playing some good stuff. I'm playing some really good stuff.
All right. So I wish I could be there. And I know you all wish you could be there too. It's been such a joy to see you, Brendan. We're glad you're here. Love this book. We love you so much too. And we are so pleased that you came to be with us here today on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. We'll see you the next time. And also remember, it is always safe inside a book. Love you.